tricks us in that way, and that our senses into thinking, oh my God, thank God it's not me, but I can almost feel it the way it is right there on the screen for me. I mean, I'll never forget seeing Night of the Living Dead, the original Night of the Living Dead, and the little girl killing the guy with a trowel, and you're just hearing that, and you're like, God, I can just feel it, you know? And that movie launched, you know, the whole, what we know of zombies today. Of course, now zombies run faster, which is a little weird, you know, it's changed. It's changed. They used to be slow zombies. We could get away from zombies, you know, blow their heads off and their guts. Nobody walks out on me. Doesn't have a clue. Okay. That's what she said. Anyway, sorry. Thank you for coming by. There's my friends. Hey. I don't know their names.
3 for 1.
There you go. That's the new boy band, 3 for 1. They're just opening for One Direction. Actually, that sounds like something Simon Cowell would name a band on X Factor, right? This is my new band, 3 for 1. You're not good enough alone, but if I put you together into a boy band, I think we'll have something. Anyway, yeah, having done Star Search, I'm kind of fascinated by those competition shows now. Oh, I didn't tell you, I actually won Star Search. After all those years, you know, having not been a stand-up comic, being asked to come on, I just kept winning and winning and writing new stuff. And wound up beating a comedian named Rosie O'Donnell in the semifinals, and I beat Sinbad in the finals and won $100,000, and the rest was history. And bought myself a very expensive car. Do you guys have any questions about this series? Or yeah?
What happened to the Crypt Keeper puppet? Do you have any storage or?
I'm sorry?
The Crypt Keeper puppet? Where do you have that at?
Well, they had 2 of them that they were, you know, mechanically, and they were very expensive to make. I mean, they're all handmade. It takes like 6 puppeteers to work those. It takes 1 puppeteer. One of the puppeteers had like a headgear that would electronically, it was wired to him, and it would move the motors that would move the jaw. So he could actually move his jaw, and it would move the Crypt Keeper's jaw. You could look at it from here, and move the jaw. And then he had these toggle switches that moved just the lips. So then another guy just moved the cheekbones and the eyeballs. And somebody else, maybe the guy that would move the jaw could also work the tongue. Then there was another guy that worked one hand and the head, and the other guy would position the torso and the other hand. And then, so it took 4 or 5 people just to work the Crypt Keeper, and then if they added feet in there was a little person, this woman, she was about this tall, and she would get underneath the table and stick her feet out there and work his feet. And this is how the Crypt Keeper worked. It was pretty amazing. Kevin's probably got them in his shop. You know, I mean, they would never let go of them. There is one in the Hollywood Museum. It's really funny because it doesn't say the Crypt Keeper; it says John Kassir. So I think everybody that walks through there thinks I look like that. And so, which is kind of fun. I have one that they made years ago for window displays at Spencer Gifts that they gave me. They wound up selling them for, I don't know, like $300 a piece or something. And it's a full-size Crypt Keeper. The face doesn't move, but the head was electronic. You would have a motor in it, and the head would move back and forth, and it had like a tape recorder that I pre-recorded something on it. And of course, because I do the voice, I can change the tape and put what I wanted on it. I used to put it out on Halloween with a bowl of candy sitting in his lap. So little kids would have to come like take the candy out of the Crypt Keeper's lap. It's just the funniest damn thing to see those kids cry. They wouldn't take their eyes off of it. They wouldn't turn around when they laughed either. They'd walk away, you know. Parents thought I was cruel. I just thought it was funny though. So that's what they have. Though Kevin has them in the studio. You know, he keeps them probably under lock and key. They had to replace, all the workings underneath were all, motors under plastic and all this stuff, and the hands were a thicker rubber, but the face, because they wanted it to work well, was very, 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 very thin types of stuff that they use like in prosthetics. And so it tore very easy and breaks down very easy. So they had to replace it every episode. So they would have somebody sitting there, meticulously putting spit in the corners of his mouth, and putting wetness around his eyes, and fixing the tears as they were working on it. It took some real artists to make the Crypt Keeper work, because those guys were really, really, really good. Really great puppeteers. They work all the time doing other things, and everything from making dinosaurs come to life to whatever in big movies and television. Next question? Yes?
Yeah, what's your favorite episode?
Yeah, the first episode was one of my favorites, The Man Who Was Death. William Sadler played a executioner in the prison, and he talks to the camera, and Ry Cooder's music. I was talking about Ry Cooder's, all that slide guitar, kind of like walking into a stranger walking into a southern town kind of feel to it. And he's talking to the audience about how like he's got the job at the prison, pulling the electric chair handle, and he looks the guy in the eye just before he kills him, and he goes, it doesn't matter how tough they all cry when they're being dragged into the thing. So they abolished the death penalty in his state, so he goes about working as a vigilante, like frying people in their bad guys in their hot tub and stuff like that, killing them on his own, and he gets caught, and they reinstate the death penalty just for him. So in the end, he gets fried, and he's crying, screaming, and in the end, the Crypt Keeper's sitting in the electric chair, electrocuting himself and getting off on it, which I just thought was classic Tales from the Crypt. And it wasn't the first one shot, but it's the first one that they showed. I loved Death of Some Salesman, which was with Tim Curry, played the mother, the daughter, and the father, which was real funny. And Ed Begley Jr. comes and because he thinks that they have gold buried, treasure buried under their house or something, and so this the ugly daughter, he pretends that he wants to marry her and stuff like that, and obviously he befalls a terrible fate. It was one of my favorites, and then of course, All Else Well That Ends Well, which is one that I started with Lou Diamond Phillips and Priscilla Presley and Alan Ruck and some good actors. That was a fun one. Obviously, I enjoyed that one because I got to act in it. And in the end, the Crypt Keeper's sitting there with his feet up. He's watching me on the TV set. He's like, those other actors are good, but there's something about this one. He's a regular Robert Redford, a Gory Cooper. And that voice, I could swear he reminds me of someone I know. So that was kind of a real fun kind of, Alfred Hitchcock twist to it, Alfred Hitchcock used to always put himself just walking through a scene, in the street or whatever, he would show up in his movies. Any other questions? Yes?
Oh, yeah.
What was that?
Yeah. How was it working on Tiny Toons?
Tiny Toons was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. I didn't originate the voice of Buster Bunny. It was actually started some years before I actually even did very much voiceover work. Tales from the Crypt obviously launched a big voiceover career for me. And a guy named Charlie Adler, who's now directs a lot of voiceover, that kind of thing. We worked together many times. Very talented guy. Originated the voice of Buster Bunny, and who was based on a baby version of Bugs Bunny, obviously. And Charlie left the show. He had a lot of work out of town, and I'm not sure exactly what went down to me. I don't know if he had a falling out with Warner Brothers or whatever, but he wound up doing a lot of directing, and so he didn't have a lot of time to do the show. And so he suggested me. And the reason he suggested me was because there was a Tiny Toons episode, a Halloween episode, where Buster becomes the Crypt Keeper. They didn't call it the Crypt Keeper, I don't remember what they called him, and Charlie did a pretty mean impersonation of my Crypt Keeper voice. So they were like, well, if he could do Charlie, if Charlie can do him, he must be able to do Charlie. So they just called me up and gave me the job. I didn't even audition for it. So I wound up doing Buster after that. And it was a lot of fun. I mean, some of the best voiceover people ever were on Tiny Toons. Frank Welker, anybody who's a voiceover aficionado would know Frank's work from everything from The Simpsons to, Tiny Toons to all kinds of stuff. So I got to work with some of the best people early on in my career doing Buster Bunny. So it was a lot of fun. And obviously the material is so funny. There's so many jokes you would never have gotten when you were a little kid that you watch it now and you're like, oh my God, this episode is based on the African Queen. With Humphrey Bogart and Katharine Hepburn. Like the whole episode was based on an old movie and stuff like that. So there's some pretty cool stuff about that. Thanks for asking a good question.
Can you still do the voice of Buster Bunny?
Buster Bunny, yeah.
Wheel, oh, comedy! We're tiny, we're toony, we're all little.
There you go. Yeah, there was somebody over here that had their hand up. Yes.
Would there ever be more Tales from the Crypt?
Good question. For years I was hoping they would do more Tales from the Crypt. Like I said, the show originally was a very expensive show to do, and because those guys were such big producers, they got a lot of favors. They got a lot of people to work for very little money, on a great show. And that's very hard to do these days, because those guys aren't as big as they used to be. It's just the nature of things over years. And getting a network to put up that much money to do a series like that could be hard. Nevertheless, they could have done it, but because of the knowledge that it was hard to get it back on the air before horror had such a huge, momentum like it does now, they gave up the rights. So they no longer have the rights to Tales from the Crypt, the same guys that I worked with that made this Crypt Keeper and this version of Tales from the Crypt. So now the Tales from the Crypt rights belong back to the Gaines family, and they've partnered with another guy who used to be one of the producers of Tales from the Crypt, a guy named Gil Adler, and who directed Death of Some Salesmen, by the way, writer, director, producer. And so he wants to do a new version of Tales from the Crypt that's not an anthology series. It's not a different story every week. They want to do a version that's kind of like an ongoing serial where there's characters from the comic book that are now like modern day kind of characters somehow. I don't know. It's a huge surprise what it'll be. I'm hoping it's really, really good. Because the fans aren't going to accept it if it's not good. Because this show is so good. But sadly, this Crypt Keeper doesn't go along with that. But they still own, the good news is those guys still do own the rights to the Crypt Keeper. So you'll see the Crypt Keeper for a long time anyway. As far as new Tales from the Crypt episodes, it'll be in some different kind of form. We're going to do something with Tales from the Crypt, which is too bad because I love that genre of having a different show every week. Same way they did with Outer Limits or Tales from the Crypt. Twilight Zone or Night Gallery. All these great shows that had, each week you got different actors. You had, different directors. You had, it had a different feel to it. But each week you could depend on the Crypt Keeper doing something really sassy and crazy, stirring up fingers in a pan and going, "Would you like to try my lady fingers? They're delicious, although my lady was not so quick to part with them." Yeah. Next. Yeah.
Do you know how the show was created for Tales of the Crypt? The intro?
Oh, the intro. Yes, the intro is very interesting. Obviously, we were talking earlier, Danny Elfman wrote the song, the music, ding, 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 ding. And Bob Zemeckis, as you know, who did Forrest Gump and all these other Back to the Future and stuff, is really into playing around with visual effects. So the opening starts with a big gate opens with a, gate at the very beginning where you see with the dragons on it, that gate, that's a model.